We've done a lot in this class. We've looked at a lot of different topics. We started out with the fundamentals, discussing what critical thinking is, how it leverages argumentation, the rhetorical technique of logos, right, to provide reasons for things, justifications for our claims and views. We looked at rhetoric, that skillful technique of using language and images in order to change the world and persuade people of things. These we might characterize as things that are necessary for solving the problems of our lives, for communicating with others, for evaluating the information that we receive and our own experiences. We started off with that, and it's been a common thread, a common theme throughout the whole class. Then, I introduced you gently to some of the philosophical topics that people like me study, that we write about, that we think about. And we looked at different case studies in some very historically influential ideas that inform the way that you think about and see the world today. You might think that reading Plato and Descartes and these figures was a waste of time, but what they wrote structures how so many of us in Western society see and interpret things today. So there was value in that. But there was also value in giving y'all opportunities to actually think through some of these fundamental ideas and questions for yourself. That was the purpose of those case studies. To give you these kinds of opportunities to look at these chains of argumentation, these historically influential ideas. Then, we kind of took a step back and took a look at the situation that we are in, the society that we're living in, and the problems that it has. This is something that we have not constructed. Maybe we've contributed to these problems in various ways. But the society that we live in, we have been thrown into. And of course, it is one that is imperfect. But these structures and systems, these people, these norms and institutions, we have to wrestle with this and we have to navigate all of this in our lives. So we looked at critiques and ideas about society and its problems to help situate us, to help get us a better sense of, what is it that we have to deal with? What is it that surrounds us, that pressures us, that influences us? And we also took a look then our present experience and the situation that we're in virtue of the education that we've received, the institutions that we move within. And I hope what was revealed to you is that you have an incredible opportunity in front of you. Not just in this class, but also in general, to get a better sense of how the world works and what things are. Hopefully it also helped clarify for you what you care about and what you value, so that you can leverage these kinds of skills towards making your dreams come true. Getting a degree, having a family, whatever it is, right? And finally, we've meditated kind of on how to do all of this properly, how to think about this stuff properly, how to evaluate our situation properly and correctly, how to think in a useful way, and hopefully also how to live in a way that is going to be instrumental to achieving those ends I just mentioned. What was revealed to us, I think, was that we need some sort of balanced way of looking at and thinking about these things that utilizes the different faculties that we have, but in appropriate proportion, right? Not always allowing one to master or dominate all of the others. But you could say the entire class has been kind of building up to the topic that we're going to be looking at today. Because doing all of this stuff, reckoning with our situation, understanding what's going on, figuring out what it is that we want and how we should live, all of this hinges on one important, crucial thing. And that is the information we receive, and our informational landscape. We don't come into the world knowing everything, right? We have to have experiences. We have to have a certain upbringing and education in order to get a better handle on what the hell all of this is and what we're supposed to be doing, right? How it works. What we can do and not do. Since you were a young child, you have had information upon information blasted at you, thrown at you, right? Information that you've been indoctrinated into. Information that you've been conditioned to think is true and believe. But if that information is bad, where does that leave you? We investigated a little bit of this when we looked at Plato's cave, but insofar as you are surrounded by information, and in order to think through these things properly and get a handle on things, you need the right information. You should be asking yourself, how confident am I that I do have that right information and that I'm leveraging it appropriately to, live and think in the right way? Because as we've seen, there's a ton of information that's been thrown at you that has been designed to influence you in a particular way. It's been designed to get you to think certain things, not think other things, do some things, not do other things, right? Think about advertising. Think about government messaging. Think about institutional messaging. What I'm giving you, what your other professors are giving you, what your parents have been telling you since you were a kid, what society tells you. We exist in this vast, frantic, complicated informational landscape. And there are all these forces that have their hands in it. Okay? Now, this might not be so bad if we could trust those who are constructing and disseminating information. We might have, some pretty good confidence that our view of the world is correct and good if we could trust everybody as much as we trust our parents, right? Or our friends. But through experience, we know that we can't, right? And what's worse is that the society, the age that we find ourselves in now, threatens to transform the informational landscape in a way that we might not ever be able to know what is true. And so as you kind of let that ring around in your brain, we're going to watch a video, and then we're going to have a conversation about this. Because the technologies that we are using today, they're producing a lot of information, and we are consuming a lot of information. And with AI becoming more and more saturated into our lives, you should ask yourself, how is this going to affect the informational landscape? And consequently, how is this going to affect my ability to live and to figure out what's true? Because if Plato is right, if we're all living in our own little caves that are constructed by these algorithms that we engage with every day, if we're not seeing the same thing that the person right next to us is seeing, if the information that we're consuming has been curated for us specifically, and we don't all have the same view of things, we don't all have the same understanding of what's actually true and false, this raises a lot of big problems for our future as a social collective, as people that have to live together, that have to work together. So let's go ahead and check this video out, and then we're going to have a discussion about all of this. Because we might be reaching a point in which we will be sleepwalking into caves that we will never be able to get out from. This is the concern that we face today. Is that the projector? That's loud. Holy crap. Okay.
Videos on various topics, but by far the most popular form of video I have done centers on video game analysis. What I think made them so popular is that instead of being your usual video game review, I have focused primarily on narrative. Specifically, I have focused on what I believe are the best stories in the video game canon. For 20-odd years, video game narratives have been demonstrating a capacity to confuse, entice, and emotionally manipulate their audience in the most positive of ways. Most recently, in fact, I've been putting forth the argument that video game narratives have demonstrated such sufficient profundity that they sometimes have matched the greatest stories told in other mediums. To continue our collective celebration of our modern-day digital mythology, I would finally like to give full attention to a game which, I would argue, has the most profound moment in gaming history. I refer to the final codec conversation from Metal Gear Solid 2. While I have done several videos on Metal Gear Solid 2 in the past, I have never given full analytic attention to this specific moment. The main reason why is because somebody has already done so. My all-time favorite YouTube video is titled The Most Profound Moment in Gaming, MGS2 AI Conversation Analysis. Though it was released almost 9 years ago by its creator, Loco Steve, I pondered for a while how I might do a better job than he did. However, given our current cultural context, I believe I have a few other worthwhile things to contribute. The advent of subjects like fake news, the resurgence of rampant political correctness, and our tendency towards online tribalism has imbued this conversation with a much denser sense of meaning. To those who consider themselves gamers but have never played a Metal Gear Solid game, you are obligated to at least listen to this final conversation. Not only will you be enlightened by its philosophical commentary, but you will be terrified by its implications, as I have been for my entire life. This game.
And of course we get an ad, right?
You're not ready for it.
Right. Are you receiving? We're still here.
How's that possible? The AI was destroyed.
Only GW.
Who are you?
To begin with, we're not what you'd call human. You look lost. Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House. It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Up until the end of the game, the main character, Raiden, believed he was receiving orders from a man named Colonel Roy Campbell, a man who was also Solid Snake's commander throughout Metal Gear Solid 1. At the end of Metal Gear Solid 2, Raiden learned that his colonel was in fact an artificial intelligence, manipulating Raiden to perform its political bidding. The bidding in question refers to the AI's desire to control the human race by controlling the spread of information via the press and the internet. But we'll focus on that more in a moment. During the first part of the this conversation, the audience learns how this AI came to be, and surprisingly, it is similar to the way human beings as a species came to be. Unlike the origin of human life in the oceans, the AI's quote-unquote life had its basis in American idealism, hence the AI's referencing of the White House as a symbol. In the mind of the AI, their purpose is to push forward American values, things like freedom, equality, and healthy competition. However, Ryden points out what should be an obvious contradiction in the AI's thought process, that the AI wants to take away those freedoms via censorship.
Cut the crap. If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
Jack, don't be silly.
Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
What?
Jack, listen carefully, like a good boy.
Not only are the AI about to argue for the ethics of controlling information, but they are going to do so in a very condescending manner. As we move on, I suggest that you, the listener, pay attention to how the AI demeans Ryden. Their pomposity is intrinsic to the effectiveness of their future argument.
The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us.
We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself.
But there are things not covered by genetic information.
What do you mean?
Human memories, ideas, culture, history.
Genes don't contain any record of human history.
Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left at the mercy of nature?
We've always kept records of our lives, through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books.
But not all the information was inherited by later generations. A small percentage of the whole was selected and processed, and then passed on. Not unlike genes, really.
That's what history is, Jack.
What the AI is trying to do here is illustrate how genes function similar to how memes function. If genes are, quote, a unit of heredity which is transferred from a parent to offspring and is held to determine some characteristic of the offspring, then a meme is something like an ethic, a fact, or an opinion that later generations inherit. Like genes, memes are also subject to a process called natural selection. If certain organisms are better adapted to their environment than others, then their genes are passed on to the next generation while others have the potential to die off. Similarly, if certain memes seemingly hold enough meaning or logic, then supposedly they survive better than memes that do not. What distinguishes memes from genes is the nature of the selection process. Genes are more or less subject to the amoral discretion of nature, but memes can be analyzed and weeded out via moral discretion. However, the AI will now illustrate how the natural selection of memes bears a unique problem in the internet age compared to the past few centuries.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk data, preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate.
It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution.
Prior to the internet age, information was curated. We read about the news in newspapers, watched the news on TV, and it was all funneled to us after passing through a, hopefully, professional body. Granted, there was a greater potential for curators such as journalists, editors, and academics to manipulate information to fit their various political biases, but at least there was some form of selection process going on. In the age of the internet, however, information is released so fast that it is impossible to control the discussion. Instead of listening exclusively to reporters, we are left to our own devices to derive what is valuable. Except, unlike the curators in the pre-digital age, the general population does not know how to separate the wheat from the chaff. We will focus on small, trivial issues like a celebrity's love life, rather than macro issues, such as the cumulative monetary debt of the Western world. We will only listen to news sources that confirm our pre-existing political leanings and ignore any challenging voices. If it sounds like I'm engaging in apologetics for censorship, I am not. I would never censor information under any circumstances. But what does one do in respect to the destructive influence of human bias? The AI goes on to propose a solution.
Right. You seem to think that our plan is one of censorship.
Are you telling me it's not?
You're being silly. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context.
create context.
The AI argues that because they are not prone to human error and have inner CPUs with greater processing power than the human brain, they would know how to curate information and present it to the human race in a way that doesn't slow human evolution. Unlike your average political body, which might censor information that is inconvenient to their cause, the AI would simply present information in the most factual way possible so that political bias would not intervene, thus cooling political tensions across the political spectrum. Of course, if something like the AI censorship program came into place, ethical questions would arise regarding whether or not this compromises human freedom, specifically our quote-unquote free will. Ideally, human beings should have the autonomy to make their own decisions, no matter what mistakes may follow. In response, the AI argues why the problems that arise from that freedom supposedly necessitate censorship.
Oh, strike gently. We've got blankets, enamel pins, patches, and stickers.
The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtapositions of morality around you.
Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans.
Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims.
Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing.
Be nice to other people.
But beat out the competition.
You're special. Believe in yourself and you will succeed.
But it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed.
You exercise your right to freedom, and this is the result. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt.
Here, the AI illustrates the various ways in which human error corrupts truth. That human error arises from an instinctual drive to protect ourselves emotionally and physically, which truth tends to threaten. For instance, let's say a religious fundamentalist is confronted with various scientific truths that challenge their worldview. Let's say the fundamentalist loses faith when confronted by those truths. What happens psychologically is that because the fundamentalist no longer has a belief system to make sense of the world, they are thrown into a mental pit of confusion and resentment. That loss of structure and certainty is so painful to the ideologue that it seems it would be better to avoid that feeling at all costs. This instinct is endemic to almost all human beings. This is why we separate ourselves into political tribes and won't consider the ethical implications of our positions. For instance, is it right to be pro-choice or pro-life? Instead of considering the validity of either side's argument, the pro-life crowd will chastise the pro-choice crowd as being on par with murderers, and the pro-choice crowd will chastise the pro-life crowd as being misogynist, religious zealots that want to control women. These low-resolution assumptions exacerbate tensions between political parties and can potentially lead to violent conflict. Most people will avoid these difficult conversations to preserve order, but if you ignore them long enough, political positions become cemented, and people will kill each other before they admit that they're wrong about something. The AI then presents a future where human bias corrupts the flow of information.
The untested truths spun by different interests continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger horde. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
And this is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper.
As we saw in the 20th century, whether it is with Hitler's fascism or Stalin and Mao's communism, the ideologically possessed would rather kill millions in the name of their ideology rather than consider the arguments of their political opponents. We see this type of attitude in its nascent stages in the digital age, whether it's calling everybody who disagrees with you a racist, sexist, homophobic Nazi, or a West-hating communist. This attitude is pervasive throughout social media, forums, and comment sections. This type of inflammatory language has further polarized our political climate and has resulted in violent clashes. In the mind of the AI, this is due to the fact that we insulate ourselves by staying inside our little ponds and casting all outside outsiders and dissidents as bad people. If this continues to happen, who knows what violent, oppressive future might manifest? Unlike the reality of MGS2, where a supposedly benevolent AI can make the hard decisions for us, our reality might become a sort of Orwellian nightmare, which the AI wants to prevent.
We're trying to stop that from happening.
It's our responsibility as rulers. Just as in genetics, unnecessary information and memory must be filtered out to stimulate the evolution of the species.
And you think you're qualified to decide what's necessary and not?
Absolutely. Who else could wade through the sea of garbage we will produce, retrieve valuable truths, and even interpret their meaning for later generations?
That's what it means to create context.
I want to remind you all that Metal Gear Solid 2 came out in 2001. This game was warning us about the advent of fake news, misinformation, and half-truths roughly 2 decades before the issue captured our collective attention. Worse yet, not only do the AIs describe a potentially dystopian future for both our reality and the reality of the game, but they also make us inadvertently realize that we currently have no constructive solution to the problem. The only tactic available at the moment is for individuals to strengthen their moral compass and call out misinformation where possible. However, given humanity's inherent imperfection, even the best of us are prone to mistakes. Worse yet, instead of bolstering the best among us despite their mistakes, we will feverishly exacerbate the mistakes of our opponents for political gain. We see this quite vividly in what has been aptly termed call-out culture. For instance, it is thanks to this culture that there is no host for the Oscars this year. It is thanks to this culture that people will be fired from their job over a tweet they made 10 years ago. A person might even be fired for a tweet that was taken out of context, when said person did nothing wrong whatsoever. Worst of all, it is thanks to this culture that we will elect politicians not based on their ethics or policies, but on how effectively they can punch the other side. And let me re-emphasize, we have no solution to this problem. In the reality of Metal Gear Solid 2, however, a hypothetical solution is presented. Because people abuse the responsibility that comes along with freedom of speech and expression and would rather attack people than their ideas, a system that controls information must be set up, supposedly for our own good. The AI go into more detail regarding this solution as the conversation goes on. However, that analysis will have to be saved for the second part of this video. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you liked this video and understand the importance of the message I'm trying to convey, please share it around. Also, I implore you...
All right. You want to hit that light for me back there? All right, light's coming on. The situation that is laid out in that video is one that we are being confronted with today. You know as well as I do that we are uploading a ton of information to the internet every day. We spend the majority of our time consuming what you might call useless information. We do not fact check everything ourselves. We place our trust in those certain people who are disseminating this information and telling us what's true. But in part, due to this complacency, due to the freedom that we have and how we feel about other people, you might say society is getting worse in a bunch of domains. Whereas with respect to evolution and our biology, natural selection will filter out genes that are not advantageous to survival. There is no cultural analog with respect to the informational landscape. It seems that a lot of people are losing the ability to actually figure out what's true. We have these built-in mechanisms for stability and security such that we will block out uncomfortable truths to protect ourselves and to protect other people. no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, right or the left, no doubt you would agree that we are becoming more polarized than we ever have been, politically speaking, morally speaking. And many are being driven towards ideologies that you might say offer simplistic analyses of how society should work and what's going on. Using these social media platforms the way that we do, Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, etc., and because of the way these platforms and algorithms are designed, many people are being driven into echo chambers where the information that is given to them and that they consume validates their own views, gives them more confidence in their views, but does not provide the complete picture. And what's worse, who we are, how we see the world, how we analyze information, not only is this stuff being influenced by certain people in positions of power and authority, but those factors that make us up, we don't seem to have direct control over those things. So, in essence, the technologies that we are using seem to be making our society weaker, more stupid, meaner, and unreflective. They are polarizing us, leading us into conflict, leading us into accepting incomplete pictures of what's going on, influencing who we support and who we vote for, the future of our country. And these technologies are leading us into a kind of existence that prioritizes consumption over thinking and reflection and compassion. Thus, the AI in this video game says, you humans have lost the plot. You need someone or something to tell you what is true and to sift through the garbage that you create and disseminate every day. Now that these AI technologies are being developed and more research is going into them, and these things seem to be happening, this is a very real possibility in front of us. So, talk about this with the people around you. What should we do? What is the solution here? What is the AI's argument for censorship? And do you agree with it? Okay, go ahead.
And there is some, it starts off really simple. For instance, someone shares their, it's such a big fan, someone who disagree with all of this stuff. These are good points originally, but based on the comments, I think people argue what somebody's going to disagree, which part opens up
they wouldn't talk about it like they do about certain things or like their biases or whatever.
Yeah, but then wouldn't you say AI is programmed by somebody?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. The AI that we're seeing right now is trained on prior knowledge. So it's kind of already ingrained in there. I'd say it was perfectly like neutral in terms of facts. The second it gets to argument like what you think the other side is going to be like thrown off and offended. It's just like you get out of it purely different facts.
The next problem is what if somebody like struggling on just or Joe Rogan or that kind of stuff for a product and it took me a couple rewatches I think a little bit. No problem. One thing, for instance, like no issue. Yes. I mean, you can look at
The summation of what we did, that's something like where the AI what information
yes.
can only do like a summation of that information. And it can only derive solutions that people would have into on their own. Maybe the better with like large bias still more other than perfect curators because there's no
Everyone agrees for you to have
to me, the importance of morality and decision is like the information might suggest that.
Okay. If you are not deeply disturbed by the content in that video, you should be, because you're seeing its consequences all around you. This is a very real possibility. And no doubt you think perhaps half the people in this country have lost the plot. Right? So what are we going to do about this? How can we live, treat other people appropriately, contribute to a smooth, functioning society if half of the country does not agree with the other half on what is actually going on? Where is this going to lead us? Give me your thoughts. Yes.
I think that there is not where it's leading, but I think there's an argument to say that higher education and debate will allow people to filter better on their own.
Higher education and debate.
Yeah.
Say more about that.
Like this class, for instance, it's a critical thinking class. We have trained ourselves to become more open in different perspectives and be able to argue them and argue against them. If everyone had that kind of critical thinking training to a higher degree, it would allow people to filter the information more in these forums.
Okay.
It's not a permanent solution, but it's a help.
So, education.
Yeah.
We can change education to hopefully stave off the end of the world in this way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously like very ideal, but I think all education is constructed in a way to show certain things more than others.
Sure.
Like, I mean, for like.
I've been selective in the content I have shared with all of you.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Germany learns fully about like the Holocaust and World War too. Whereas, I mean, like in a Western like education, we only touch on it like, I don't know, like a unit or two, effectively.
Okay. So you would say, yeah, education's messed up. Maybe if we mold it in a particular way, things will get solved?
Yeah.
Or things would be better?
It's just something to think of, that it is very curated in each area.
Sure. Okay. What do the rest of y'all think? Are you not disturbed like I am? Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's possible for AI to really take over, but
Okay.
so I just don't think that'd ever be a possibility because it's an LLM, it's a large language module, it's not something that acts on its own, it's not artificial intelligence, it's just a bunch of code and factors that learn from itself.
Probabilistic, like language generation, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it just predicts the best possible answers from past chats with other people and maybe scan a little bit of the internet, but I don't think it'd ever be able to do that. And if it did, it'd be awesome because then we might actually have legitimate content out there. I mean, right now, like you said, 90% is crap, and I think it's even more than that. All of our, you got to think like all of our media is controlled by somebody who wants power, and they're trying to push their own agenda. Like think about like Meta, like Mark Zuckerberg. You know how much he owns? Like the NSA. They control all of our conversation, communication. Bought TikTok so that they can control us even more. I mean, everything's already controlled, but I mean, just don't think that AI is going to be able to do the good deed for us.
As it is right now. But let's say if we threw a bunch of money into AI research, would you support giving AI the reins over our information?
Yeah.
Unbiased, objective.
It's better than having a human do it, yeah, honestly.
Okay, yeah, so you're sympathetic to what the AI said.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, I don't know the whole thing in Metal Gear, but I think the AI is clearly different than the generative AI we have now. Because
we have
is like obviously the LLM generative trained on things that we have. I think the AI is actually like a artificial intelligence, like a thinking, growing thing. It's supposed to be kind of like a general intelligence thing, yeah. Not something that humans created that have certain limitations and blind spots, but. I mean, the people we have that we have now are clearly biased. The ideal, like, unbiased AI would be better than what we have now, but it's essentially impossible to get there. At least in my opinion, because it's all someone built it, and that has inherent bias in what they created. Whether how small it is, it could magnify to something insane. Sure. I mean, this is a huge topic in AI research, the problem of value alignment. What we have now, the technologies that we have now, there are certain values and ideas and norms kind of baked into those things in virtue of how the coding is, right? And who designed it and all of this stuff. Okay, so AI couldn't do this for us right now. But imagine we did have a general intelligence millions of times smarter than us. Anybody sympathetic to giving it the reins?
Yeah.
We have one. Just give it a try at this point.
Give it a try? Okay, 2. Angel, what do you think?
I don't know if I'm quite sympathetic, but there's a lot of sci-fi books that take that premise for a reason. And I think the reason that this is contingent on like AI not as it is and not as it will be, but as it could be.
Sure.
Is because there's no system of like human government or religion or anything where we believe that we are the highest, like the most accountable power. And like within a system of democracy, any information might be curated to whatever side of power you want to win out so that you have power, or like whatever system of capitalism, whatever information you want to put out might be whatever's most profitable, or in communism, whatever keeps the peace within that system. There's no system of power that we create that doesn't prioritize itself. So it can't be trusted because, some people believe that all humans are, self-serving, self-centered, and so any system of filtering will also be self-centered towards itself.
Biased, you're saying, right?
And so this is kind of relying on like this hypothetical, unbiased thing that maybe biased things can't create. And that's why, a lot of people, they believe in like a God, because there's something unbiased that you can put all your faith in that does have control, whereas something that's like biased is fallible, so it won't.
Okay, so you seem to agree that we have this giant problem, and you also seem to be arguing this problem is inevitable if there's going to be humans in control. So, if an AI, if AI wakes up, give it the reins, Angel? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Product of human creation, I don't know.
What if you just tell it to be unbiased?
This is a hard problem, right? What are we going to do? Yeah.
I was going to say, to go against its very argument that if we are so conflict driven and stupid and lazy, that if we were to create something that is the opposite of that, and then it also inherently goes against kind of just human nature and survival instincts as well for self-preservation, because it's then what about that? And then also if it's saying that it can't capture our culture and our understanding of things like that nature as well, then how can it fully understand this as well then?
Okay, yeah, so you're raising a bunch of issues with the solution that the AI presents, right? One of the issues that you raised was, a topic that often comes up in dystopian sci-fi novels, right? What if the AI is not this pro-social, compassionate, objective, unbiased thing, but if it's looking out for its own interests, or if it turns bad, we're screwed. Yeah? Yes.
You also got to think in that situation, that AI, the reason I'm sympathetic to it is because that's a made-up story that it created itself. And obviously society nowadays, like you said, you can't create something unbiased if you are biased or something. As a human, we're naturally biased. You can't create something unbiased. So, but that's a made-up story that it created itself from nothing and evolved and became a perfect being basically. So it's obviously impossible in a real-world scenario. That's why it's a video game. It's not. You don't see it happening nowadays for a reason.
So it might not even need to, let's say, turn bad. You are kind of mentioning also, like Angel, look, if these things are the products of human hands in some sense, they're always going to be biased. They're never going to be, purely objective. Right? Okay. Yeah.
Wasn't one of the AI's argument is that by making information based within AI that it would help evolution?
Yeah, so this is one of the things that the AI got into was, look, the way that we determine the information that gets passed on to future generations is through things like norms, the books that we write, the artifacts, the cultural artifacts that we leave behind. You might think in the internet age, 99% of what we're leaving behind is useless garbage. This is what the AI thinks. And so the AI says, yeah, you need someone or something. You need us to curate the information that we're going to direct future people's attention to. Yeah?
So nowadays everyone's always saying, because we become so reliant upon AI, that we're almost hindering our evolution and getting smarter and stuff because we're so reliant upon it. So wouldn't that kind of be counteractive in a way?
You think human independence generally is a good thing? Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, look, if we give the reins over to AI, we're not going to grow much anymore. Is that worth potentially getting screwed by this problem? How do you weigh that? I don't know. Yeah, I would think human independence is generally a good thing. Yeah.
I think
Like there's certain levels of like, you know, of course there's things that like AI is a lot more efficient than us at doing. There's like typically like quantitative things, but like there's more to life than like generating shareholder value, you know? Like what happens when like we use AI for music too much and nobody knows how to create their own music now? Because like AI's only been out for like 3 or 4 years, and like I already know kids who like can't write an essay because they've just been using ChatGPT since high school.
I see a lot of ChatGPT essays. And don't think that y'all who are using it in here, it's going unnoticed. Of course, as an aside, I have to say, don't do that because you're preventing yourself from cultivating the skills that you will need. But, yeah, so again, dependence on this thing might lead to us becoming, weaker, less intelligent, less capable of dealing with problems. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Let's say weaker, less intelligent, less independent. Yeah, etc. Yes?
I think already we're throwing away 99% of the stuff that we make anyway for favor of the ones that we deem more impactful. Like there's tons of books being made, but like, the ones that keep being brought up are famous works like Frankenstein's, the famous ones effectively.
Yeah, Of Mice and Men, The Grapes of Wrath, East of Eden, yeah, Wuthering Heights, sure.
So I only hope that it could continue that way. I mean, we're producing more than ever, but what's to say that we can't also get rid of much more?
Once something is put onto the internet, does it ever leave?
Well, it's archived, but we don't have to look at it.
That's right, we don't have to look at it, right? But what information is put in front of our faces? Is it the Frankensteins of the world? Or is it, hey, here's this cute video of a dad who picks up his children now with a golf cart because the car line is too long?
I feel like that's the use of education.
Okay, so education, you think, can help us sift through the information and figure out, what's worth keeping, what we should focus on.
I mean, there could be a future use of education that kind of spans someone's whole life, like kind of like a yearly update more than like after, I don't know, college or anything, or in your major, because you do that kind of in your jobs when it gets innovated, if there's new technologies.
Yeah? Okay, so you don't seem hopeless.
Caught me on a good day.
Okay. Angel, what do you think?
It might be kind of a separate note, but I was just looking
Go
at
for it.
An unbiased AI is impossible, and how he was talking about like things that AI can do efficiently, and how we can't, like, that isn't something we want. We don't want an AI without a consciousness, but any degree of morality is relative to like what hemisphere of the world you're on, what beliefs you have. So an unbiased AI might, maximize efficiency, shareholder value, and become like totalitarian in trying to maximize things. But if we give it any degree of morality, it's the question of which morality is right. And there's never a real answer to that. So you would program it with one, and like, if it was given like a Russian morality system, then Americans would think it's subjugation and vice versa. And there's like no degree, because there's no objective morality and no objective amount of morality we'd have to give the AI, it can't curate these decisions in an ethical way.
Okay.
Because it can't make those considerations, because it's like only a summation of different ones, but it will prioritize whichever one you give the most of.
Sure, yeah, how it's trained, the data that it's given, right? When it's being trained, all of this stuff, those rules, those values that are baked into it. So let's say I take your argument and I accept it, right? AI is not going to be capable of making the ethical decision for the reasons that you brought up. Does that mean we're not in danger of it being given the reins? How much has AI come to saturate our lives in the few years now that it's been developed? Do you think it'll be given more or less control over society in the future?
I think more, because like it does saturate, like it saturates and atrophies culture because it takes what we've made and it makes worse and worse reflections of it. Like
yeah, say more about that. Do you have like an example?
Like yeah, with like art. It AI generates art and then it trains on that AI generated art, and that's when you get those like weird Facebook posts of like a shrimp music.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It just gets worse and worse until that's all the art people see, and that kind of art isn't going to inspire creativity. And if we filter out showing real art to people, we will stop creating real art. And like someone else said, we'll become dependent on that, and then we'll just atrophy like any culture or creativity we had, because we're only going to get what we're flooded with, which is AI, and that will degrade itself by training on itself.
So you think AI is going to, in general, be given more control over our society in the future? You know, maybe we will start giving it access to and the authority to run all of the public transit or something. Maybe we'll give it control over certain policy decisions, you know, economic tinkering. The picture that you paint doesn't sound great, right? Okay, so we're likely going to give artificial intelligences more control, but you kind of make it seem like things are going to get worse as a result of that. In some domains, right? Like art, whatever, literature maybe. I mean, I'm tempted to agree. This is a concern, yeah.
I think we're at the height of the AI bubble. Like it's about to, or should, pop pretty soon. But I think its place goes in more as a tool rather than anything revolving in culture at all. Because one, I think we're already moving away from it because there are many, like I would say, at least the majority or close to the majority is revolting against anything that can like includes it. To like, I mean, people like, you know, for example, Metal Gear, and like, and if any new game and uses like AI generated art, they kind of shun it. But I think
a lot of people do not like AI art. Yeah.
It being a tool should be helpful. Like if it could, you know, coordinate the bus routes to be faster, or know the optimal amount of buses and stuff.
Yeah.
That would be ideal. Or there's already studies and AI being generated that can identify cancer like years or months before doctors. Of course, it's going through a doctor as well to make sure that it actually is cancer. But
yeah.
They're already cultivating and finding pictures that could identify it way quicker. So it being a tool on like subjective things or things that could only better us medically, even economically.
So it can be a useful tool in some domains. Medicine is a good example, right? There are these algorithms that, having been trained on X-rays and these other medical imaging, are able to help diagnose people at better rates than human doctors that we have now. That seems like a good thing, right? How about performing surgeries? Maybe, you know, a machine that is driven by an AI, they never get shaky hands, right? Maybe it could be good there too.
I mean, I don't see a world without happening, but that's way more far off than pattern recognition. Like for example, like of course we're using machines to mitigate our shaky hands already. Like we're doing it through machines sometimes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard to train an AI, though it is kind of what it's built to do, to account for any possibility that could happen. Like if you're doing surgery, like not something wrong happens, but it's not exactly what you thought. What if the AI just seizes up instead of making like a gut decision effectively?
Yeah, I mean, there are risks, right? Yes.
I mean, you take in like the human aspect of it, doctors and surgeons have the most steady hands in the world. I don't think people are worried about with the top surgeries and like top, like the top 10 doctors in the world are not worried about AI taking their jobs. They literally are like they've trained their hands and their bodies so much that they are machines, and there's no room for error.
Yeah.
So when you think about replacing the best with an AI, you take out that human aspect of it. So the human aspect of like making gut decisions or figuring out what's wrong on the fly, I just don't think that's like a realistic thing.
Okay, so if we did try to, replace some doctors and surgeons with AIs like these, it would lead to a lot of bad consequences. Maybe more death, more suffering. The way it stands now, yeah, that doesn't seem unreasonable. Yes?
I think a lot more realistic issue is like AI taking all the entry level jobs. So then like, kids graduating college 10 years from now, like how are they going to get a job? Because every job is going to require 5 years of experience, but you can't get any entry level jobs because due to like automation, they're just having AI do everything that's basic enough.
What kind of society will we be living in if we do give machines those entry-level jobs or those factory jobs? There are a lot of people that are worried about automation. How many people it's going to put out of work, how much suffering it's going to lead to, because companies want to cut costs and they want to do things more efficiently. Now you might say, okay, well that'll free us up to, live the lives that we want and we'll be more free, unless there's some sort of, let's say, universal basic income that's implemented at the same time. Those people will just not be making money. Their job has just been taken from them, so they won't be able to live, right? This is a concern.
Yeah, I think that, what you've described, like that situation, is contingent on like it being for the good of the people that we replace the jobs and not for the profit of the company.
And how likely is that?
That's not likely at all. And it's the kind of thing that's very idealistic, and I wish it could happen. I'm very funny, like sci-fi books, like the Scythe series does that too. Like, if you have the universal income, you can just have people do the jobs they want to, while machines get the things that need to be done. But like even for people like surgeons, like you were trying to say earlier, even if they're just as good, there's still less of a margin of error. They're still cheaper to produce. They don't take 12 years, 20 years of education to do surgeries perfectly.
Yeah.
They could do it in 1 year of factory production. You produce 1 million of them.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that it wouldn't be able to do instead. And it's got a lot of utility in that way, but it just can't be made decisions that it can't be accountable for because it's not a person.
Okay, yeah, so if AI is given the reins, it's allowed to take people's jobs, it's allowed to make more formative decisions about how our society goes and what happens. Yeah, I mean, what do we do about if an AI makes a poor decision or something bad? Who's accountable? Who's responsible? That's a concern. Yeah. Yeah.
Back on like the automation and jobs thing, a part of me feels like letting AI take so much space in the job market would like drive up competition, which then drives up innovation. Because
Okay.
Like if you want to be something in life now, you got to create something that people want to use, which is going to lead to you inventing something new that we need.
Okay, so AI taking the entry-level jobs, it might not screw us over.
Oh, no.
In the long run, it will.
Yeah, it still would, but I feel like it'd also bring up innovation. Because now, like, people desire to, like, feel like they did something with their life, So now it's like, okay, you got to do a little bit more to do something with your life now, but people are still going to fight to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think that AI taking anybody's job is a totally ridiculous statement because what it is just going to open up new jobs. I mean, the railroads, when they came into they came into the United States, everybody thought, oh, it's going to ruin everyone's jobs. It's creative destruction. You have technological innovation, something's created that's new. And AI is a tool. It's not something that's just going to replace people. Like, you still need humans to operate that tool. So all it's going to do is open up a different job market. It's not going to eliminate anybody. Nobody's going to starve. Nobody's going to go hungry. And anybody who thinks that is like purely has no idea of how economics works.
Okay. So yeah, this entry of AI, let's say, into the job market, production, manufacturing, let's say transportation too. It's actually not as bad as a lot of people think.
No,
in fact, it might actually be good.
It's going to make people more efficient. Like, here's the thing, like with a writer, let's say you're really good at writing, all right? I'm a professional writer. I teach people how to write books. You teach your AI how to write like you. Now you can write 100 times the amount that you ever could. That thing can work all night, not sleep, and all you have to do is just read over it. But you still have to know what to look for. Like, you still have to become an expert in it. You still have to know how to analyze it, do it by hand. It's like a calculator. Everybody thought, oh, calculators make everyone stupid. No, it just made everyone more efficient, able to do higher levels of math. It just helped our society get to the next point.
So, if used properly, it can open up a lot of doors for people.
That's the only way it's going to be used. There's no possibility that AI is going to take over the entire market and turn into Terminator or Ultron or something like that. It's just crazy.
Well, I'd like to meditate on one thing that you said, because it's related to my profession. Thousands of AI books are being generated every day, and they're being listed on Amazon, right?
They're not written by professional writers.
A lot of them are not, yeah.
Making an app, having no idea how to code, you can't do that. You have to know how to code and make an app with AI. Like, vibe coding is stupid.
Well, I'm sympathetic to what you're saying there. But we've kind of come full circle to the concern that we've been talking about earlier in the class. There are AI videos being produced every day and shared. There are books written by AIs, poetry anthologies being written by AIs. Do you think maybe the media companies, CNN, NBC, ABC, Fox News, do you think they might be using AI in their work? I think the odds are probably high that, a good percentage of them are. Of course, they're still putting human eyes on it, right? You would hope. How do things look with respect to the informational landscape? Are they going to get better or worse? Are we going to get closer to the truth or not? Is the information that we're consuming now actually true and reliable? How much faith do you have that, let's say, the LLMs and the other artificial intelligences that people use, that they'll be able to present to you, the appropriate context and everything, in the facts, in an unbiased and objective way so that you can make your own decision? If we're all falling victim to misinformation, fake news, deep fakes, which are only going to become more numerous, of videos that AI create that makes it seem like somebody's doing something, but it's a fake video. They never actually did that thing. Insofar as AIs are now plugged into our informational landscape, how is that going to affect us? Take deepfakes, for instance. How is the criminal justice system going to be affected by a technology that can whip up a video of anything that you want? Will video evidence be allowable or trusted in court moving forward? Or audio evidence? This gets us back to the primary question of today. What are we supposed to do about this? Censorship? If so, who controls what's censored and what's not? Who determines that? If not censorship, well, just look at what's happening to our society. If things do not change, do you think the people in this country are going to become more or less polarized?
More polarized.
I worry about that, yeah. Again, you might worry we're kind of sleepwalking into a situation in which we're all being given different pieces of information. So, what's the solution? We are imperfect creatures that give in to our vices, that develop bad habits, that spend time doing the things we shouldn't do. Like, for example, doom scrolling instead of, studying for our philosophy exam. So what are we supposed to do? What are you going to do, if anything? Nothing?
I guess the only thing to do is to train your critical thinking, try and be reflective on all information you take and not take it at face value.
Okay, so train it, but also utilize it.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are a lot of smart people in the country, right? But if they don't use their skills of reflection and analysis, they're just going to fall victim to information like we all do, right?
And I think it's also important just to always be aware of your own echo chambers, because your For You page, whatever you ask AI, it's going to spit back an answer custom tailored to you. So just make sure you're being aware that everyone's being fed information based on what their algorithms think they want to see, and that they're all just slowly moving down that path. So try and be aware that everyone's in their own cave.
Okay. Are we just going to let people, dig themselves deeper into the ground? Are you going to try to reach out to people? Are you going to try to engage in some, awareness campaign about this? Or what are you going to do?
Well, I think of Socrates in your exact example, where he was, say, the rebellious one to the news that could have been corrupt based upon who was ruling. And so then today it's fair to say that everyone believes in these different things, everyone has these different perspectives, but who's to say that they aren't the Socrates in their own area, And thus, everyone should have that ability to express what they want. Now, AI brings up...
Okay, so no censorship.
Yeah, but pair that with the critical thinking use.
I'll just leave you with a question, because we got to go. I'm already over time. How much faith do you have that people will use the critical thinking skills that they have? Let's say in the next 5 years. What are things going to look like? Well, you should reflect on that, because this is a serious issue. Okay, thank you very much.